Okay, it's 2:47, and we're back. Mr. Herndon?
All right, we'll call this rulemaking hearing back to order, and we are at rule number 12.
For whatever the record, if you need to state that 82005.
Okay.
Just up to you.
No, that's fine. I'll go ahead and
Just a typo.
page 3, Rule 0820-05-.03, Basic Requirements. When you get down to the heading for the actual amendment, there's it says 0820-04-.03. That's supposed to be 0820-05.03.
Rob,
Operator error.
just as a point of clarity, I think you stated it in the break, but 0820-04-.11 sponsors was not having any changes, so there wasn't any need to have it in this amendment. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
We weren't touching it.
Okay, thank you.
So we moved on to rule number 12, approval of programs. I guess for the record, rule number 13, audits, is not on here either, and neither is rule 15, advisory committee.
That being said, is it redundant in Rule 12 that we have paragraph 4? Because it says it may appointing advisory committee to assist. So we could probably strike that and leave 15 in there then? Would that be correct?
Yeah, I guess what we probably should have done is just repealed Rule 15, but we'll just redact paragraph 4. I think that's actually what we were planning on doing, is repealing 15, and we just didn't make it in there because it's the same statement. Paragraph 4 is the same as that rule. So I guess for now we'll just
Mark it out.
redact paragraph 4.
Okay, thank you. One question I had on Rule 12 was, should it be included that the approval of a course by the board shall only be for a period of 2 years and will coincide with the renewal period, some language of that nature? I think that's the way we're operating. Is that correct, Donna?
They expire 2 years from date of approval.
Okay.
Like if a course is approved today, it'll expire 2 years from today.
Okay, so should we add any of that language in this under approval of programs? Because I don't think it's in the current. That was a board policy maybe, or
That was
a board approved thing or something from prior?
for the 2009
Okay.
thing.
All right, so approval of any program may be granted for a period of 2 years from the date of approval, comma, and then leave the rest.
Just for the record, we're eliminating this 90-day window from the prior rule. Some approved that, as Bart said, maybe should not have.
It's been repealed, yep. It's taken out.
That'll be a plus to us.
Place, I think no sponsor may provide any continuing education courses without prior approval from the board.
added that language about the 2-year period or whatever.
Okay.
Any further amendments to Rule 12?
Is there a process for individual course approval? Like if I take a course that's not approved, you know, I'm not a licensee, but I'm just hypothetically speaking, if I were to go and take a land surveyor course in California that was not pre-approved by the sponsoring organization or the board, am I, as the licensee, out of luck? Like, is there a process for individual course approval?
I think that goes back to the registrant needs to ask the board to approve that course, and we have that approval under a prior.
So what they do now is, if they want approval for the course, an individual licensee, they'll fill out the reporting form and send their stuff in and request they be looked at by the board to see if the board will approve it, and then I present it to the board for approval.
Under which role do you do that? What's the authority?
Let's see.
08200505 paragraph 4.
Your basic requirement. Let's see. Are you looking at the new rules or the old rules?
Oh, that's the new one.
Oh, okay.
Continuing education.
That paragraph is there.
At number 5, 0820-505, it's number 5 in the current rule. Alleviate a little pressure from that here when we get to number 14.
Rule number 12, we amended that. We've added a 2-year period of approval from the date of approval, and we've redacted paragraph 4. Okay, number 14.
Haven't got the wording correctly, but I'd like to add a sub-paragraph B, and I'll just read what I've got, but I know that it doesn't flow like it should, so you'll have to kind of work with it, Rob. What I have is the registrant resides in another state or territory, has taken approved courses recognized by that state or territory, shall be applied as credit to Tennessee. So I know that's not exactly the right words, but I think that's the spirit of where we were coming from, like you gave your Missouri example there, Mr. Cleveland.
Isn't that covered under A? Registrant resides in another state or territory which has been recognized shall satisfy all the continuing educations for renewal in Tennessee.
That state is short on hours that we require.
Or 8, the remaining 7 would have
We'll
to
take
fall
it,
under
but they still
our
have to
approvals. Yeah.
make it up.
Like I say, the wording's not very smooth at all. It's real choppy. The resident resides in another state or territory and has taken approved courses recognized by that state or territory shall be applied as credit. That may say the same thing. That may not be exactly the way that we was trying to get at with Jimmy. I was trying to write, and we were talking about something else. And like I say, it's pretty choppy. It's not very poor, Jay.
I don't know that covers exactly Jimmy's situation, but let me see if I understand what you just said there. If a person resides in, and let's pick a state here, Missouri. If you live in Missouri and are also licensed in Tennessee.
I know what happened. I started with the one that we had, and we got. I got sidetracked on something else, and I changed the spirit. And you're right. So let's see. Instead of resides, the registrant is licensed. See if this sounds better. Is licensed in another state or territory, and has taken a proven courses recognized by that state or territory, shall be applied towards credit in Tennessee. I think that's what we was trying to get to, and I wrote the wrong word down. Instead of is licensed, I wrote resides. Does that sound better? I mean, it's this East Tennessee choppy English now, Jay. So
I'm with you. I'm with you. I think I understand the spirit of what you're saying, but I want to set up a scenario for you.
Okay.
I'll set up a scenario for you. All right. I'll use myself. I'm licensed in Tennessee. I'm also licensed in, let's say, Arkansas.
Okay.
Right? Arkansas will recognize, and I'm hypothetically here, Arkansas will recognize a course online. Pick a vendor, Red Vector. Just pick it. Right? All right. Well, I'm gonna get my applicable PDHs for Arkansas through Red Vector, and I get my PDHs through Arkansas for Arkansas. Am I misunderstanding that? Well, Arkansas just took it. Tennessee has to take it now, and I just went around the whole system. But I understand what you're saying. But I'm just.
No, I'm right there with you. The
Okay,
out-of-state.
all right, let's change the life sentence then and say.
I understand the spirit of what you're saying,
Right,
but there's a loophole.
Well, I'm gonna see if I can kill that
Thank
loophole.
you, thank you.
Which meet whatever section it is over there, 0820 dash whatever, which meet that particular section that we just crafted, which would be, I guess, 0820 0503. Rob, would that be right? Because that's the or we could be 0820 0505.
But wouldn't letter A just cover it the way it is? I mean, it says you should meet all continuing education requirements for renewal in Tennessee.
But what we were trying to do, I think, Ms. Nicole, was help the in-state registrant who is licensed out of state and has taken hours that we would consider good hours, but they weren't pre-approved in our state, so that they could use those hours for credit. Did I state that right, Jimmy?
Yes, sir.
Well, I'm getting closer, Jay.
It's getting warm. Jimmy, state the situation that you just encountered. It was a perfect example of what you said, and you said it earlier. It was perfect.
Okay, Jimmy Cleveland. I recently attended the Missouri conference, and there were.
First of all, you're licensed and live in Tennessee.
I'm licensed and live in Tennessee. I'm also licensed in Missouri. I recently attended the Missouri conference, and they had several courses that would be very good courses for registrants across the country. One being a statistical analysis of surveying measurements, and the second one being a maps, records, deeds analysis type class. The statistical analysis class was, I think, a 4-hour class. The deed and records analysis class was an 8-hour class, and they were not pre-approved by Tennessee. However, they would be very applicable to any registrant in the country. And the goal was to try to possibly make an avenue for a Tennessee registrant who resides in Tennessee to be able to take those classes and apply them towards the Tennessee requirements for continuing education.
I think it's a tremendous idea. I'm licensed in 5 states, and I try to attend seminars in all 5 of those states, and kind of for that very reason, too.
Here's the way I've been told to do it. If Tennessee's their home state, they have to be pre-approved. Courses do. If another state, say Missouri, is your home state, then we'll take what Missouri requires, or what they accept, as long as you meet our 15-hour requirement.
That's what A says.
That's what A says. Yeah. That's what A says. This is
That's
a
what
little
A says.
different
We're
scenario.
actually, we're
There's
actually
a little
adding
twist.
something new, which I think will make all of our jobs easier. Really,
It should. Yeah.
it should. Because this way, you're not penalizing the registrant. In other words, you're not forcing Mr. Cleveland in this example, since we're using him as an example, to go to Missouri and comply there and then have to come back to Tennessee and comply, even though I know he has enough hours to take care of both of them. But you're not forcing him to comply in both places when he's taking comparable courses that would be good in either place, even though we didn't pre-approve it. Yes, ma'am.
As I said before, if the rule included a very specific individual course approval process, that's one way to cover people who take courses that are not approved in Tennessee. Or you can do an automatic approval of, if that state accepts it, we automatically accept it. And I still think there should be at least some opportunity for individual course approval of some type specifically laid out in the rules, because they could really take anything and the content would not be evaluated by the board or the advisory committee if it's not specifically laid out in rules.
I can certainly say in my tenure on the board that anytime Ms. Mulder has a question about any continuing education whatsoever, she has brought it to the attention of this board.
I understand. I just want to make sure that the rules specifically cite the requirements for that. So if you're having rulemaking on the requirements for continuing education, if it's specifically laid out, individual course approval will be looked at like this, or all out-of-state education approved in that other state. There's certainly good language that can be crafted for either or both, but I just want to make sure that we're covering it in the rules specifically rather than impliedly.
Tim, just kind of taking a step back a little bit, we just discussed I think it's item 5 currently, going to be item 4, about how all activities submitted to the board for continuing education credit are subject to the approval of the board. Isn't that situation covered?
Well,
Couldn't Jimmy submit and say, look, I just took a great 8-hour course in Missouri on ABC about surveying. I'm requesting approval to the board on that.
Yes, he could.
So it's covered.
So, well, what I was trying to do was to make it a little easier on Donna. So we had a rule here that she wouldn't necessarily have to bring that to the board. Not that it's cumbersome. We don't have that many of them.
Yeah.
I was just trying to make it to where the average registrant wouldn't have to delve through the complexity of this rule in order to come up with what you just said.
Yep.
Unless, Jimmy knew that and he told Steve that, you know what I'm saying? They'd have to dig in there and find it themselves. So I was trying to make it clear to where they could look at a sentence and say, well, I'm licensed in another state or territory, and I've taken some approved courses by that state or territory, and if they meet 0820 0505 for Tennessee, then I can submit them. That was sort of where that was going. Yes, sir.
Could we quantify that statement by adding supporting documentation? Because every convention brochure has got a 1 or 2 paragraph outline of what that class would be, and then most of the ones I've seen also have a short biographical information on that presenter.
Well, that's why certainly you could do it in the manner we do it now, but that's why I was wanting to maybe add that particular section that we just spoke to, which qualified the course.
And that could possibly support that, giving that supporting documentation to Ms. Mulder, that way if you looked at it and said, well, this is kind of questionable, then you could bring it to the board at that point. And that way you would have the information without having to go back and forth. In my particular case, you call me, Jimmy, I need some more information, send it to me. If I want to try to claim that information, or if I want to try to claim those hours, I need to give you the supporting documentation. That puts the burden on the registrant, if they want to do that, to supply you with that documentation for you to make the educated decision on that, or the board to make that decision.
See, we don't know, I don't think that we know, of the 840 in-state registrants, how many are licensed out of state in some form or fashion. I mean, there's 4 of us sitting here right now that's licensed out of state somewhere.
Me personally, as an out-of-state as a multi-state registrant, if I want to claim those hours, I have no problem whatsoever providing that extra documentation. If I want to claim those hours, I feel like it's my responsibility to provide you with that information. So, I personally think that would, if somebody wants to claim those hours, I think that would be, a good thing for them to do, to provide you that information.
The only reason Mr. Hearn and I suggested subparagraph B was to kind of accommodate that situation. If it would make it better, if it doesn't, I'll certainly strike it. I have no problem with that.
I think paragraph A probably contemplates that situation. Any further comment on Rule 14? Right. That concludes our amending of the rules. There's one final thing to do that we did last time, and I think it's there on your desk. Everybody got the regulatory flex? Okay, once again, by law, I have to present the Regulatory Flexibility Act requirements, and the board needs to consider the 6 questions at the end. This Regulatory Flexibility Act is for Chapter 0120-05, Continuing Education. The Regulatory Flexibility Act, Tennessee Code Annotated Sections 4-5-401 at sec, requires that as part of the rulemaking process pursuant to that same chapter, all agencies shall review all proposed rules and the effect that the proposed rules have on small businesses. The Act requires that, as part of its analysis, each agency shall prepare an economic impact statement and as an addendum to each rule that is deemed to affect small businesses, which shall be published in the Tennessee Administrative Register, filed with the Secretary of State's office, and made available to all interested parties, including the Secretary of State, Attorney General, and the House and Senate Government Operations Committees. This economic impact statement shall include the following: the type or types of small businesses and an identification and estimate of the number of small businesses subject to the proposed rule, the projected reporting, record-keeping, and other administrative costs required for compliance with the proposed rule, including the type of professional skills necessary for preparation of the report or record, a statement of the probable effect on impacted small businesses and consumers, a description of any less burdensome, less intrusive, or less costly alternative methods of achieving the purpose and or objectives of the proposed rule that may exist, and to what extent such alternative means might be less burdensome to small businesses, a comparison of the proposed rule with any federal or state counterparts, an analysis of the effect of the possible exemption of small businesses for all or any part of the requirements contained in the proposed rule. The Tennessee Board of Examiners for Land Surveyors convened a rulemaking hearing on October 24, 2013, in order to consider amending current board rules relative to continuing education requirements. These amendments concern updating the procedures for obtaining continuing education and adjusting provisions for inactive and retired registrants. The rules contained in the notice of rulemaking would replace current relative requirements with the proposed updated standards. Okay, now we're down to the economic impact statement. Number 1, types and estimated number of small businesses directly affected. The response might be, these amendments would not impact small businesses because the board licenses individuals, not entities. 2, projected reporting, record keeping, and other administrative costs. There are no projected administrative costs as a result of these amendments on small businesses. Probable effect on small businesses. There is no expected adverse impact on small businesses as a result of these amendments. Less burdensome, intrusive, or costly alternative methods. The board knows of no other alternative method to achieve the goals exhibited by these rules. Comparison with federal and state counterparts. There are no federal counterparts to the issues addressed by these rules. And lastly, effect of possible exemption of small businesses. There will be no exemptions created by these rules. And then the last element, impact on local governments. The Board of Examiners for Land Surveyors licenses only individuals and foresees no financial impact on any local governments. So I propose these responses to these 6 inquiries.
Good with all of them? Anybody have any issues with that?
With all of them.
Chair will select a motion to that effect.
So moved. To approve.
And a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise? Okay.
All right, that concludes this rulemaking hearing. Now, we need to get the director to call the roll and have the board members respond as to how they vote as far as adopting these amended proposals.
Sue Brawley,
I approve it.
Tim Lingerfeld,
I approve.
Galen Northcutt,
I approve.
Jay Kaufman.
Approved.
All righty, that concludes this rulemaking hearing. We're adjourned.
Kill the mic.
Still have some items of business from the board meeting if you want to do that now.
All right, Ms. Hernan, if we just take those up tomorrow? Those two
I
items.
don't know how much is left.
There's
We have a couple of items.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure it was necessary since there's only 2 items.
We'll just carry those over tomorrow if that's okay. Motion to adjourn.
Second. Approved.